I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture, to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Tech Queen Jen Morse, Director, User Researcher at Sonos. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jasmine.
I'm so happy to have you joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing really well on this Friday.
I'm happy to hear. So now let us dive into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the Queens of Tech 60 plus questions.
I'm ready.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
Hashtag humorous, hashtag nurturing, and hashtag open-minded.
How would you summarize your life in 3 sentences?
A work in progress, always striving to learn more about myself and the world, and trying to make a difference in people's lives, however big or small.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
This was a tough question for me because I think so many kinds. It really depends on my mood and the activity that I'm doing. So music greatly enhances my life, and it's a core need. And most people don't talk about music in this way, but in our research at Sonos, we have found this to be true. It's not a nice to have, it's a need.
I agree with that. What is your personal motto?
The biggest motto that I've been telling myself lately is someday is now. Make things happen in your life. There's no guarantee that you will have tomorrow. So I'm removing someday from my vocabulary.
What is your favorite book?
One of the more recent favorites is probably Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. And the reason I am inspired by that book is because it really highlights how behaviors can be grossly misconstrued, and it encourages us to look at things more deeply and with less bias. And that is a good reminder for all of us who are building products.
What is your favorite podcast?
Lately, it's been The Daily, but honestly, I've been reading a lot more these days rather than consuming podcasts.
Mac or PC?
Matt.
There's something interesting about you that most people don't know.
I was a student ambassador in high school, and I traveled East Asia, living with families and experiencing amazing things, including going to a rural town in central China where no one spoke English. Yet I was still able to communicate through body language and other things when I was living with that family. So just amazing experiences.
So cool. What is your hidden talent?
Unless you've been with me at a social event, you may not know that I'm a pretty good dancer.
And if you were going to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
Nobody is perfect, and that's what makes life interesting and connects us all.
Great start, Jan. Now, let us dig deeper. Our childhood has a profound effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. Now, I want to discover your childhood. Where did you grow up, and how did it shape your early experiences?
I grew up on Mercer Island in Washington. It's a very idyllic place, and I spent lots of time building forts and ravines and getting muddy and dirty. I think being a Gen Xer myself, we learned to explore and do things without too many boundaries. So we learned how to fend for ourselves, to be tougher, and to be outside more.
What was your dream job when you were a child?
I actually once thought I wanted to be a veterinarian.
What was your favorite subject in school then?
Creative writing and broadcast journalism.
What was your least favorite subject?
Anything math related, not a fan.
What is your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
Oh, I remember distinctly when the internet started, actually. And I was in my first role. And I just remember feeling really excited about how this could change my work. Of course, at that time, there wasn't a lot to find on the internet. So it's really crazy to me to see where we are today.
And which were then the three first technology gadgets you own, and how did it influence your interest in tech going forward?
Well, again, Gen Xer. So I will say one of the biggest technology things that really made an impact in my life was my Walkman, that personal listening that just changed my whole life. Also a Palm Pilot and my Razor phone. So I still have very fond memories of all those products, maybe except for the Palm Pilot.
And during that period of time, who was your female role model growing up, and what about her inspired you?
Well, I have to say my mother for several reasons, because she really encouraged me my whole life to explore art and culture. She had such a finesse with connecting with people, any person, doesn't matter who you are. And she also was a fashion and interior designer, and she influenced how I pull myself together, my home together in an authentic, elegant way. She also had the best sense of humor that stays with me to this day.
Beautiful. And thank you very much for remembering her and sharing her with us. And how do you think where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
One main thing I can draw out about my education is I attended an all girls Catholic school growing up. So my graduating class was literally like 40 people. So my friends for this time period are really more than classmates. They're my sisters, and they have all gone on to do really incredible things. I consider them to be my superpower, really, that inspire me every day.
So let us now dig into your career. But before that, Jem, I'm going to read two quotes. First one, how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So I want to know the choices behind your career path then. Where, what did you study at university?
I ended up studying in my undergrad at Alfred University in Alfred, New York, which is a beautiful spot in upstate New York. I studied communications and psychology. So back then, it was my intention to actually become a broadcast journalist. But serendipitously, all of this training has served me very well in my field of user research. So since the start of my career, I also had the opportunity to study anthropology at the University of Chicago, design strategy at IIT in Chicago, human HCI at MIT, and more recently, a leadership certification at Harvard Business School. So I'm always striving to learn more. It's never going to be over.
Wow, that is so impressive. But who and what influenced you to get into your chosen field in research?
A couple of things. I think, given my education, it shows that I've always been interested in learning about people and developing insights and telling compelling stories that move people or make them think differently. That's always been something that has been of interest to me. But I was also very fortunate at the start of my career to find a great mentor in my first role who really took the time to invest in me. And we are still great friends to this very day.
And what professional roles have you had before that led you to the current one?
I've been in user research for a very, very long time. But the one thing I can say that I was before that was I was a DJ and I had several interview radio segments that I conducted, as well as music and sports. I had a good following there, but I really enjoyed being able to interview subject matter experts and really bring those insights to more people.
That was a hidden talent, I would say. DJ, not everybody can do that. Sonos is very well known, but from your own perspective and with your own words, what does Sonos do?
Sonos really does strive to create the best sound experiences possible, but ultimately it's to make people's lives better. And as I said at the start, music is a need and it's not just a nice to have. And so I think we take that very seriously in the ways that we can impact people's lives.
What is your title and what is your main responsibilities?
Director of user research. So I oversee all the research we do across consumer, professional, and exploration categories. I'm responsible for delivering the roadmap with the most insight and confidence about our customers and potential customers. So my team takes pride also in making sure we conduct research in inclusive ways. So we shed light on realities and break assumptions. So that is a core part of my responsibility.
So, how did you get the role?
I actually met my former manager at a conference and really connected with her. I was very impressed with her. And she actually ended up offering me my role 2 years later, but we had been talking that whole time. I had been on the consulting side for most of my career, I would say. And I was really excited to move into the product space because it feels like I can make a bigger impact. And that really excites me. And now I am in my former manager's role. And I feel very honored to serve the company in this way.
Wow, what an amazing journey. And what does a typical workday or work week look like for you?
Lots of working sessions with my team, lots of collaborations across other teams. It's really important that I stay close to the work.
Then I love the quote, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. So, what do you love the most about your role?
The ability to make meaningful impact in people's lives. That is such a wonderful thing. And I love specifically about the technology industry specifically. It's been really fascinating just being at the beginning of this journey again as a Gen Xer and really seeing where tech has been going and where it might go in the future. And I really enjoy that it's my job to make sure that people remain at the center of the tech experiences we build.
And you've been doing this for a long time, which means you have a lot of experiences and a lot of memories. So, what is the best experience you've had in your role so far? Any examples you can share with us?
There's been so many good experiences over time. I've been fortunate to have many achievements in my career, some big, some small. There's one more recently where I was able to identify and clarify key audience for a new product line. And the research that I did really provided the rigor needed to build out a solid roadmap of product development. And I was able to bring all of the different disciplines together around this research to make that happen. So I was very proud to be able to do that. And now we're modeling that across the company.
And what is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far? And how did you end up tackling that?
The biggest challenge for me in my role right now is just staying on top of everything that's going on, honestly, and being able to make meaningful connections across programs. Although it's a challenge, it's also something that I really enjoy at the same time.
What do you wish everybody understood about your role?
It's important to understand that being a director is not just about managing people, but about being a thought leader and helping others at the company adopt those thoughts as their own. I still sit on interviews, I still conduct them as well. It's important to stay close to the work no matter what level you're at.
And what is the one common myth about your profession or field that you want to disapprove?
Within my field of user research, I think there is a misnomer out there that qualitative research doesn't provide enough sample. And we hear this a lot in our field, but the reality is that if you've really done your recruiting correctly, and that is imperative, you will reach a point of saturation that unlocks key findings. And quant is a good complement to this. I'm not discrediting quant, but it won't tell you the why like qual will. And that is much easier to action on.
Based on everything you said, what do you love the most about working in the tech industry?
I love where tech can take us. I can imagine so many wonderful things of bringing people along, especially when we talk about the topic of inclusion. I think it opens a lot of doors for a lot of people who've been shut out, quite frankly, for a long time. And I'm excited to kind of lead that charge in my role as we conduct our research and really seeing how tech can help people, not just tech for tech's sake.
Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. So, Jem, what has by far been your biggest achievement in your career?
I answered this out of turn in a previous question you asked me, but I think it's really my biggest achievement is bringing basically an entire company together around research and meaningful insights about people to bring those people into their minds. I would be in meetings where engineers will be talking about interview participants by name and bringing them into their work. And that to me is a huge achievement.
What's the biggest factors help you become successful? What are your success habits?
I love this question, actually. I think really what's helped me become successful is staying open and always learning new things, not always trying to be the smartest person in the room, but being a better listener, then contributing and being a part of a team that values you.
And how do you measure your performance at work knowing you're successful or not?
I look for impact and reach, knowing that I'm reaching audiences internally and externally. That is a real proof point for me. I think making a difference in companies' culture. I think making a difference in the opportunities that are open there for the company. And of course, ultimately, their revenue.
And Jen, with success comes failures. What would you say is your biggest failure or setback in your career? And what did you end up learning from that?
One big one that stuck out for me is making the assumption that all of the stakeholders involved understand user research and learning the hard way in circumstances that I needed to build better tools and processes to bring people along the journey.
What would you say is inspiring and motivate you the most in your role and career right now?
At a high level, I think it feels like a time of change right now, and things are shifting and opening up. And that's very motivating for me.
Now, let us jump into the influence of mentors, role model, champion, and sponsors. Role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us move ahead in our careers. You said it a little bit earlier, Jan. You have had a couple of mentors that have led the way. So, what have they meant to you?
Currently, my manager is really incredible. He truly believes in the work my team is doing and its importance in our future. And he really does inspire me to connect with others across the company and share that knowledge. I've also cultivated a network of rock stars in my field over the course of my career. And really having their support and expertise is very grounding and inspiring.
That is amazing. And history shows that it's been more common for men having mentors, champions, and sponsors in business than women. So, how important do you think is to have a mentor, champion, and sponsors through one's career?
I honestly believe it can make all the difference in someone's career, really. Having that one person who believes in you can keep you going when things get hard, and things do get hard, and then you overcome them.
Let us now move on to leadership. Adena Friedman, president and CEO of NASDAQ, said, I quote, empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes the difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Shirley Sandberg, ex-COO of Facebook, said, I quote, Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. Jen, what does leadership mean to you?
It ultimately comes down to setting a good example for work culture, providing opportunities for people to grow, and then acknowledging contributions in a really authentic way and inspiring new ways of working or thinking that keep people engaged.
What distinguishes a good leader from a bad leader?
Good leaders really do understand that they've done a great job hiring the right talents because they trust that those people are going to do great things. On the flip side of that, bad leaders may assume they know better about everything and underutilize or even cripple the talent they've hired for their knowledge and expertise.
How would you describe yourself as a leader?
I would describe myself as being experienced, open, and real. And this is how I build trust with my team and others I work with.
And as a leader, what values do you prioritize the most?
Again, trust, assuming good intentions.
And what leadership lessons have you learned that have shaped you into the leader you are today?
Really learned a lot from having some amazing managers in my career who have supported me and opened up opportunities for me. And that has helped shape the kind of leader that I want to be, really. And I've also had a few who weren't so great. And that taught me this valuable lesson as well.
What would you say are your three strengths and three weaknesses?
Three strengths that come to mind is I'm kind, I'm creative, I'm a connector of people and ideas. On the weakness side, I would say sometimes I can be overly optimistic. I'm a bit tough on myself, and sometimes I have a hard time saying no.
Let us now jump into the hottest topic in business today: workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Jem, what do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
For me, I think it means thinking about the world holistically and that everyone in this world has a right to be seen, included, and supported.
What do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were to join a company tomorrow?
If I were to join a different company tomorrow, I would be looking for diverse leadership for sure. I would be looking for maybe a flatter hierarchy that enables everyone to make a difference. And then finally, processes that enable people to balance work and life. I think working with talent that inspires me to think in new ways is also really important.
And as a woman, what has been the most significant political or a culture barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
In previous roles, I was working in many male dominated categories. In these cultures, men would tend to take over conversations, maybe talk over me, or overly assert themselves in strategic conversations. And I learned to overcome these situations by coming to these conversations prepared, really, with more meaningful insights and also learning how to present my ideas more succinctly. Now there's more listening and less interrupting.
Powerful. And how do you discuss DIB challenges such as salary gaps, promotion, or maternity leave, etc., with your colleagues, peers, and community?
We do have a pretty open dialogue at our company. We have a variety of ERGs and we definitely support each other very frankly and openly in those forums.
There are many public and internal discussions about the barriers women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals face from reaching high position or receiving funding in the tech industry. How have these issues affected you, and what is your advice on overcoming these roadblocks?
As I mentioned, we have these ERGs and very frank discussions. I think it's really important to note that there are men involved in those forums as well. And I think that the burden shouldn't fall on women to make the necessary changes. I think it's all of us need to play a part. And so I'm encouraged to see that happening in my own field right now. But ultimately, I think it's really important to understand that diversity makes our work more interesting. It provides new opportunities through these different lenses. And if we're not doing that, we're just making the same stuff for the same people and we never realize our full potential. So I think really making that message known all the way to the top of the chain is really what's going to make change happen.
And today, tech companies invest heavily in marketing, attracting women of color, non binary, and transgender individuals, but they're struggling to retain them. Articles show online that women are leaving the tech industry. Jen, what is your best advice of strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages the IB?
I keep coming back to this word, Jasmine, but it's so true. I think it really does come down to trust, authentic trust, and building that by being able to create a meaningful story and show how these opportunities equate to revenue and stronger customer draw, giving diverse staff the opportunity to shine and contribute in new ways, and providing a sense of belonging, I think, in the work culture so they can shine and be their best selves.
And that is everybody's dream and a great advice. However, what would you say are the key challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace and in the tech industry today?
I really believe without a real commitment, things will never change. So it's imperative to instill processes, again, put very strong signals out there that we are going to be kept honest by these processes, keeping us accountable and give us a reason to pause or course correct when we're falling into old habits. Change is very hard though. So setting up these processes help people accept change over time.
And why do you think it's important for more women of color, non binary, and transgender to join the tech industry today?
Again, it amounts to more opportunity and ultimately more revenue. I think there's a lot of diversity in this world. And if we open ourselves to it, everybody will realize a better future.
And how do you think companies would benefit from not just having them as leaders and managers, but actually higher gender representation at C-suite level and boardrooms with a voice?
Hands down, better products, more trust as a brand, and more revenue.
Again, Dan, great advice, but why do you think is the main reason we still see few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in the tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
This is a tough question for me. It's possibly a combination of things, maybe traditional ways that women have viewed themselves, in general, feeling less confident in these areas and themselves in this space. But also, I think there could be a lot better support out there in helping women gain that confidence. And I think as far as the startup community, I think there could be more VC firms that are represented by women.
I was going to get into that for the next question because there's another challenge that the data reveals a concerning trend of low funding rates for startups led by women, with only 1 to 2% of the funding directed towards women in the tech industry. Black and Latina women in particular is said receive less than 1%. You might not have done the funding round yourself, but I'm sure you know a lot of people, you read a lot. What factors do you believe contribute to this imbalance, and what strategies can be activated to increase funding for women led startups?
To your point, I have not been in the startup world, but I am familiar with it. And I think, my earlier point that the VC firms may not be diverse enough. But as a researcher, I wonder if there are better ways that women can be telling a clearer revenue story in these pitches and really bringing in meaningful data points and research to better sell into VC. And I always feel like connecting to a core need is really imperative.
And how much do you think that tech industry has changed regarding DIB since you joined?
I do think that more companies are holding themselves accountable for diversity. I think more companies understand that there is a revenue attached to diversity, but it is a work in progress.
And looking back on your career, Jen, what one thing would you have changed in your working environment to break the bias?
Going back to your previous question, I think in general, I would have maybe asserted myself a little more, trusted myself a little bit more, and maybe be a little bit more proactive in creating more opportunities for myself to grow.
And now knowing that, looking forward, what actions will you take as a leader to reduce bias and improve DIB for the next generation in tech?
Yes. So my team is actively working on this through a customer lens, of course, but my team is also predominantly women. So I really am looking forward to continuing helping them on their path to grow. It's actually paramount for me.
Let us now move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work life balance and mental health. Jem, I'm sure you undoubtedly have a busy lifestyle. How do you take care of yourself to maintain good mental health?
I do exercise quite a bit. I play golf, tennis, I do Pilates. I take time for myself to care for myself in that way. I always make time for my friends and my family to connect with them. I see music, I look at art, I absorb culture, and that really inspires me. But most importantly, I think I just remember not to take things too seriously.
Have you ever experienced burnout?
For sure. Yes. I feel a deep sense of commitment to my work and my responsibilities. But I think I'm also recognized if I'm not realistic about what amount of work I can tackle, it will ultimately affect everyone in my life, not just me. I listen to my kids when they tell me, Mom, move away from your desk at the end of the day. I set working focus time on my calendar and I honor that time. And the best way to end my day is really knowing I have been productive and I can rest and rejuvenate for the next day.
Again, great advice. So, what is your advice? How companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in the new now?
Ultimately, it comes down to recognizing we are people and we matter. We're not cogs in a machine. So allowing people to have that time to really focus and really just being able to allow people to disconnect will ultimately enable your people to do better work. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge when they do great work because that really keeps people energized.
What would you say motivates you every day to get out of bed?
I would say making a difference, learning something new, and the people I work with.
Now, let us wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. Jen, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
A big one for me is to remember that you are your own worst critic and you shouldn't speak to yourself negatively. You should speak to yourself in the same nurturing way you would speak to other people. And I think learning from your mistakes and growing from them ultimately.
And then, what is the worst advice you ever received, and how did you handle that?
Not sure exactly, but something along the lines of never quitting until there is perfection. I think this can be very paralyzing and often unproductive instead of a good result. So it can actually make you falter and lose confidence in your convictions.
And you have told us that you have so many talents and skills. Is there something you wish you would have known or a skill you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
Well, I suppose the answer that came to my mind was coding, just because I'm not a technical person. But in the current landscape, I recognize now that these skills are now embedded in school educations, and that wasn't the case when I was coming up. So I think that's something that I wish I was exposed to.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
It would be you have the power to do great things, and someday you will be a mentor, not a mentee. Remember your worth.
And what advice will you give to young girls, women, women of color, non binary, and transgenders who are trying to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders and founders?
Really, you need to believe in yourself and don't let anyone take away your power or your dreams.
Last but not least, Jem, what is next for you in your role and career in tech? What are your career aspirations?
To influence positive change, to speak openly and truthfully about the importance of these changes. And I think the biggest impact that we can make in being in tech is actually asserting that not everything should be tech forward. We have to connect with real people and their needs. not just tech for tech's sake. It's an important role to grow this mentality within my company.
Beautiful. I look forward to follow your journey forward. Thank you very much, Jen. Such an honor for being on the guest on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey will without a doubt inspire change and reshape company culture for the next generation of women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders and founders in tech.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. It's been an honor to be included in this. I applaud this podcast that you're putting together underway to bring all women leaders into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensof.tech.